Welcome, Simsbury community media folks and sports fans alike. We're here to bring you our first show of Scrum Down with Trojan Rugby. Roger Coombes here for Simsbury Community Media, and I'm pleased to introduce our new program. Here with me is Matteo for our first Rugby Coaches Show. I'm fired up about doing this show with you, Coach.
Roger, big thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you today. You know, I see your shows on, and I am such a fan of you and what you do for the community and what you do for SCTV, and it's my pleasure, and I am really excited to work with you on this today to promote the game of rugby and to spend some time with you.
Let's do it, E. Let's do it, brother. I've learned a lot about rugby and working with Coach Matteo the last few days in preparation for our discussion. Hope that you also enjoy the highlights of Trojan Rugby. We also have a really nice, about a 5-minute piece video that Ed put together, and we will include this in our show. This will be nice to see a clip of this wonderful rugby program. So let's scrum down with Trojan Rugby. So without any further delay, Ed, the history of Trojans Rugby, you started the program in 2007. Take us through how you kind of got that going with the administration, with the faculty, and how you got it off the ground.
You know, it was way back in fall of 2006. Dr. Dan Spada, pediatrician in town, approached me and Dennis Horrigan and John Madano, and was very avid about starting a rugby team at the high school. Now, at that time, there really wasn't a lot of rugby teams at the high school level across the state, so this was kind of a major task at that point. Dennis and I were both coaching University of Hartford at that time frame, so we were kind of into the game, and you know, it seemed like a great opportunity to start something in our hometown. You know,
Sure.
Both of us are from our hometown boys of Simsbury, and we both had a love and a passion for the game, and it seemed like a natural fit. So we started the process, and you know, having a local pediatrician at the front of this to sell the aspects of the game was a huge plus for us.
Spada.
Yeah, Dan Spada had taken care of a lot of people in town and was a pretty predominant pediatrician in town. So we had known Neil for many years, and Neil Sullivan got us a meeting with Mr. Holden, and I remember being in that office in, I think it was November of 2006.
Director of Finance, Board of Ed Finance.
The field,
Dave
the name
Holden.
after Dave Holden Field. Dave was the head of finance, and you know, we kind of laid out a plan. You know, and to be honest with you, they were really skeptical about it. They didn't know if there was enough athletes to go around in the springtime. And we didn't either. But, you know, we wanted to give it a go. We were excited about it. And, you know, that was the kickoff. And in 2007, spring season, we had about 30 boys come out. And we started our career in rugby in Simsbury High School. And, you know, that first year was obviously a lot of orientation, a lot of getting the kids used to what we had in mind for rugby, what rugby was.
Did you put together a schedule of that 2000 spring season?
Absolutely. We had a good relationship with Cheshire, who was also kind of a new kid on the block at that point, so we knew we had some games with them. There was 2 other established teams in the state that we reached out to, and they were excited to have some Connecticut competition, so they were willing to give us a few games, and you know, that was the start of it all, you know, and it was an uphill battle. Clearly, when you start something brand new, everything is fresh and everything needs to be explained, and there's no one coming back with any experience. It was a reboot of everything.
No playbook yet.
No playbook. No one understood what a ruck was. No one understood what a maul was, scrum was, line out. So we had to go from square one. And,
That's awesome.
You know, to this day, those are still some of the best memories. Still fun times.
Well, you're moving into your 17th season, 110 games later, 62, 49, and 1. Incredible program you put together. You got a nice group of assistant coaches with Howie Rosenberg, John Modano, David Duncan. They do a nice job for you, and you got to have those assistants, volunteer assistants.
Well, we became a varsity sport right around 2012.
Okay.
So we do get full backing of the school for assistant coaches and for myself and trainers and buses and uniforms. So we are a full-fledged varsity program.
Love it.
So we do get funding. It took us a little while to get there. And what the neat part about that, Roger, was the school came to us and said, "You guys have grown. You guys are a good entity. We like where you guys have taken this. Would you like to become a varsity sport?" And, you know, it's a huge milestone in our rugby kind of career to get that accomplishment. You know, there's not a lot of schools in the country that have that varsity status. So we were happy to get it.
That's awesome.
And it was interesting as we progressed through the program, that Cheshire game, I think we got beat up pretty good the first few years.
I'm sure.
And now they won't even play us anymore because we're above their level.
Yeah.
So the program has grown dramatically.
And we're going to talk about the Division I Connecticut Rugby League that the Trojans play in later. And
Yep.
You'll understand what Ed means when he talks about tough competition.
Absolutely.
Well, good. So, Ed, on your list of items you wanted to talk about, you had why rugby. Can you give us a little of your input on why a student athlete at Simsbury would want to play rugby, particularly early on in the years when maybe it's not those high-profile sports like football, basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer?
Yeah, I mean, and it's a question we always want to introduce, and we want to make sure everyone understands why they should play rugby. You know, out of the gates, you know, it was something different. You know, the kids, you know, with all the mainstream sports, they played baseball, they played all these sports all the way up through their age groups, and they started at the age of 5 and all the way through. This was something totally different.
Totally.
It was totally something that they'd never seen before. They became interested in it. It's a fast-paced game.
Mm-hmm.
There's always continual motion. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to learn. These kids are sponges. They love the fact that this is all brand new. This is high-paced. It's a thinking man's game with a lot of physical contact. It's one of the fastest growing sports in North America right now. It's an Olympic sport. It's, you know, become an MLR. The professional league is kicking off in the country now. Colleges are adopting it, and it is become a big time thing in colleges. And for kids that are in Simsbury High School, it's become, and we'll talk about this later, a great gateway for kids to go to college, pick a college, and be immediately absorbed into the college life. You know, they come in with 30, 40 friends, and, you know, immediately they come in with a high level of rugby IQ compared to some of the kids who would start playing at college, and they're embraced, you know, they're thought highly of, and it's a great adventure for them. And there's also a spot for everybody. No matter of your body type, of your athletic ability, there's a little position for everybody. Out of the 15 positions, there's a good fit for everybody. And that's important. You know, the bigger guys can gravitate more towards the scrum and that aspect of the game. The faster guys will gravitate more towards the backs and that issue of the game. And there's, you know, and what makes it interesting too, Roger, is all the kids have to learn the fundamentals of the game. Right? In some sports, you get kind of die-cast as you're an offensive lineman, you block. Whereas in rugby, I want you to carry the ball, I want you to tackle, I want you to potentially kick sometimes, not advised a lot of times, and you see these look in their eyes. You see these offensive linemen who have been told for years, don't touch the ball. When I begged them to pick up and run with it, whole new lease on life.
Candy store.
They found a whole new lease, right? This
they
is
get a
excitement.
little love.
They get a chance to score, right? I want them to pick the ball up and run with it. They have not ever experienced that in their life.
They've never touched the rock.
They're not supposed to touch the rock, right? So it becomes exciting and new for them, you know, and it's something that really sets us apart. And I think that gives us a lot of drive there. And the other aspect, Roger, and you know, I'm very proud of this aspect, is the culture. You know, we're very social, dynamically built, right? The game itself is, every person is important. It's inclusion, never exclusion.
Wow.
Everybody is part of our team. And we even practice that way. So the freshmen get to practice, you know, depending on contact time, with a lot of the seniors, and there's a good intermix there. So it's a lot of inclusion. Everybody's important. Everybody's part of what's going on. everybody's a rugby player. And that translates very well. And, that's the culture we drive for. That's a culture we seek. And
Coach,
it's important.
15 players on the field at once.
Absolutely.
How many on your bench? And then how many get in?
So,
for example, basketball.
Yep.
12, 14 guys on the whole squad. 5 start. Most coaches run a 7-man rotation, 8-man. That leaves 6 guys who do layups before the game at halftime. It's tough.
Here's a challenge with rugby, right? And we've had these years where it's been a challenge. Is your 15 start, there is no substitution, right? If I pull a player from the game, he's out of that game for the rest of the game. A sub comes in and continues on at that point, and that player is exempt from coming back in the game. Now, there is a few exceptions for blood. If you get cut and you need blood time, you can have a blood sub come in while they patch you up, and you can come back into play for that. So you get a bench of around 24 kids that are eligible to play in that first game, but we also have many games. In our heyday, back in 2019, we had 75 boys playing rugby.
Wow.
So we had our varsity game. We had a varsity 2 that played in Division 2. So another 24 boys played there. And then we had a freshman-sophomore team that went and played Premier Rugby against Greenwich and Staples and all those teams down there. So if they come and play for me, that's my responsibility to make sure they see the field. Because the kids won't grow.
So
kids
COVID
need to
hurt
grow.
your numbers.
COVID did a number on our numbers.
Wow.
Yeah, we left 2019 at a really peak. 75 boys and very competitive. We finished in the top 3 in the state that year. That was a year we traveled to Ireland with 45 boys. The next year we had a really good number. We had a really good team, and that season was lost. And here's the problem too, right? So unlike other sports in town, we don't have a youth system. There's no Little League baseball.
No feeder system.
There's no feeders. There's no YMCA basketball.
Midget football.
No midget football. No. Everything we do, we drive based on, interest level, success, marketing, and peer marketing.
That's huge.
Right? That's our big seller. Peer and parent marketing. Because our best like advocates for the game, and we talk about this all the time with our parents, is our parents. There's always that concern of parents, they don't know anything about the sport. They've never been introduced to it. When I get another parent who's willing to go out and have a conversation and say, my son loves rugby, I love rugby, your son should come out and play. And it's been very successful that way. But when you lose a season like 2020 was for us, it really set us back. Yeah. It really hurt us bad. And that was the momentum we had going. And, that year we probably would have had close to 60-some boys, and we would have really contended for the state championship.
What'd you have last year, Eddie?
Last year we had about 45.
45, one team or a couple teams?
Well, we always have an A and a B. And our varsity JV, and we play those games, and everyone gets in.
That's perfect.
That's my responsibility, make sure everybody gets games in.
That's huge. So you have to do that.
It's critical.
And you'll get up over 50 this year.
We're driving, we're peaking towards that.
Yeah, and I hope this show helps that, Ed, because this will really help get the word out a little bit and turn some folks on to rugby in Simsbury.
There's so much that it can offer your student, not even just in the short term, Roger, in the long term.
Sure, and we're going to talk about that when we get into college.
Yep.
This segues into our safety piece, Coach.
Yeah.
I know that's an important topic for you. When we met, you really were going over some of the safety protocols and rules of rugby. And let's take a look at the scrum cap.
Yes.
That your players wear. No pads, Coach.
Not allowed to wear any hard shell helmets, any hard shell pads, no shoulder pads, nothing of that sort. And if Roger run that around a little bit, I mean it's not hard
it's flexible,
shell, right? This is near foam or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
So it's something that is based just to stop abrasions, maybe some cauliflower ear, and just give you a little bit of cushion for some of the bumps and bruises.
Yeah. And I'd put it on, but then I'd have to make Bree cut it out.
Yeah, you don't want to mess that hair up either.
I'd rather not.
No, let's not.
Eddie.
That.
And then the shoulder pads are in the jersey?
You're allowed to wear the same kind of material, and that's an authentic 2007 Simsbury Rugby jersey. That's vintage. You don't find those everywhere. So
and then this one has the shoulder pads.
there's no shoulder pads.
Those are separate.
Those
inserts.
are separate.
Okay.
Right. And you'll see them. They're very thin.
Yes.
They're thin, and they'll cover a little bit of your torso and your shoulders just for a little bit of impact. They're nothing. They're not allowed to have anything hard shelled in there. Mm-hmm. And the game is based on tackling with your shoulder as opposed to your head. And there's several things going on there, and we can hopefully spend some time on this. There's never any head contact allowed. If it is, it's a penalty in the game with potentially to get ejected at any point in the game. So the rules of the game are gauged for your tackling to happen below the armpits and never any head contact at all. Immediately there's penalties assessed for it, and it's a pretty severe penalties at some point in the game. If you look around and you talk to a lot of the football people, they have started to adopt the rugby tackling. And we talk about this all the time. And that's kind of where I've kind of had a niche with some of the Simsbury football programs. It started with Seattle. Pete Carroll, we were talking about the other day, had brought in a bunch of rugby people and started introducing rugby tackling. And for twofold, right? Without you leading with your face and your head, you immediately take out any opportunity for head contact.
Without that mask.
Right. So, and you and I talked about this before, Roger. Even in football, they're trying to get the old school of sticking your face mask in someone's ribs is out, right? There's too much potential for concussions. You want to take your head away from contact at all points, right? So, the old school tackling for football has been replaced with this new shoulder tackling and getting your head away from contact. We stress that heavily with the football program, stress that heavily, and we work on technique.
And we'll see some of that when we go to the video.
We'll definitely see some of that.
I enjoyed that.
And rugby and tackling technique is critical. And I talk about this all the time. It's not just running into each other. You're working on footsteps. You're working on tracking. You're working on head positioning. You're working on leg positioning. There's a whole bunch of skills that go into tackling that in years past have been kind of like, you just run into this person. Those days are over.
You can still grab and throw down.
You can grab, you can throw, but there's...
Can you block and hold something?
No blocking, no holding. So rugby's based on running forward and passing the ball backwards. You can kick the ball forward. The only way to advance the ball forward is by running it and kicking it.
I see.
So, and on the safety piece of it's critical for us, and I come away with, especially if I deal with football and rugby, I see a big differential, and something you and I talked about before, and the stats prove this out. But if you look at an average, NFL player plays 11 minutes whistle to whistle.
Of cumulative time.
Cumulative time at NFL. I think high school is probably more like the 5 or 6 range.
Agreed.
Where an average football or average rugby player plays 35 minutes whistle to whistle.
That's a great stat.
And then when you lay that stat on top of injury rates, it blows it away.
I see where you're coming from.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you talk about 11 versus 35 and you look at those injury rates, those numbers dramatically decrease. And you look at those percentages and you go, wow, rugby's really much safer.
Right. Because the probability injury could be a lot higher because of the higher whistle to whistle.
Yeah, you're more time involved. And also in rugby, you only get tackled if you only get hit if you have the ball and you're around the ball. Right? In football, you're getting the offensive linemen are engaging in contact every play.
Yes.
There's always a little bit of contact every play. Rugby, you're only going to get hit if you have the ball in hand or you're supporting the guy with the ball. So there's a certain amount of understanding that you're going to get hit at this point. You're expecting it. You can prepare for it, and we talk about how to prepare for it. So we make this game very safe.
That's excellent. And that's great for the parents, especially at this time where football is really having to change some of their methods and process.
And they're leaning, Roger. They're migrating towards a lot of the rugby stuff. And that's important to understand.
That's excellent. So we're going to move on now to the landscape of rugby in Connecticut, as well as the USA. Like to focus more on Connecticut because it's not a CIAC sanctioned sport. And Ed, you'll talk about that after. talking about this Division One with Greenwich, Staples, Fairfield Prep, Trumbull, and Ridgefield. Very large, tough, established programs you go up against. Those are the southwestern, the Gold Coast. They got some jing down there,
Very, very
and
competitive.
they have a head start on you.
Yeah, I mean, Roger, we have that division is arguably one of the hardest divisions in the country.
I believe
and I mean this sincerely. You talk about a Fairfield Prep and Greenwich are two of the old school 40 plus year Fairfield Prep programs of high school rugby in the country. You look at Greenwich, they have over 100 and some boys playing rugby. Right? They look at Fairfield Prep, they have 90 boys playing rugby. You look at Staples, they have another 70 boys playing rugby. Ridgefield is now up to, I think, 50, 55 boys playing rugby. And Trumbull, the other team, the brand new team, has over 55 boys playing rugby. And where it even gets tougher, Roger, is every year Greenwich and Staples and Fairfield Prep get ranked in the country. So last year, Staples and Greenwich were invited to the national tournament in, believe it was Indiana. And against the top high school teams in the country, California, Texas, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, they all come together. They get selected to go. You have to, it's like the NCAA, you get selected to go. It's not you don't just pay your money and go. You get selected to go. Greenwich, I think, finished 5th, and I know Staples finished 3rd in the country.
Wow.
So two teams in our division we play every year are in the top 5 in the country, right?
And that helps promote their program, and parents and kids see this. That's automatic advertising. It's guaranteed.
Yeah, it's competitive rugby, and then you add on a team like Fairfield Prep, who goes to the Jesuit tournament and wins the whole Northeast Jesuit tournament. Wow. So we're not ducking anyone. Then Roger, you add on there Trumbull, who had one of the top players in the country, one of the top U20 USA players in the country, and was being flown around to play U20 internationally.
Wow.
And has got a scholarship to play rugby. So, and then, that's just our division. And then to add insult to injury, we toured last year, went down and played St. Joe's, who was ranked in the top 15 in the country in Philadelphia. Wow. And then we played Belmont Mass, who was the Division I Mass state champion last year too. Wow. And then this year we'll play the Rhode Island state champion.
Wow.
So,
and then you fill in the rest of your schedule with Southington. How about teams like Glastonbury? Do they have a rugby
They do
program?
not. Southington has a program. Cheshire has a program. There's other small programs around the state that will blend in where we feel they fits our schedule. And there's other teams across New England will also work in. This year we'll play Bishop Hendricks out of Rhode Island, which is the top Rhode Island team. We'll also play. Is it Xavier Brothers? Who are we playing up there? Xavier Brothers out of Mass, and we'll play Belmont again. In years past, we've played New Hampshire teams. We've played a bunch of the New York teams in the past. There's a lot of teams in the New York suburbs we've played. We're not afraid to play.
That's excellent.
We play with the toughest schedule in the country.
Yep, and I kind of jumped around a little bit.
That's okay.
We'll talk about that 2023 season later, but that is a real good piece about the landscape of rugby in Connecticut. Eddie, tell us real quick, not real quick, but you told me yesterday it's not a CAAC sanctioned sport. It's a varsity sport, varsity letter at Simsbury, but you have to have a certain percentage of schools that have a program to be considered a CIAC sanction.
To be adopted into the CIAC, and I've done a lot of work with Rugby Connecticut and USA Rugby on this. You have to have a certain percentage of the schools that make up the CIAC have to be participating in that sport. So we're still at the new end of that. We're still growing and we're still getting there. But Greenwich is a full varsity sport. Fairfield Prep's a full varsity sport. Staples is a full varsity sport. Ridgefield is semi-varsity sport. They're under the school's umbrella. They're single school, and Trumbull is now a varsity sport there. So that's why Division I is fully endorsed by the schools. They are funded by the schools. They are governed by the schools, which is even more important. And it's equivalent to any varsity sport in Connecticut.
As is Simsbury's a full varsity
Simsbury
sport.
Simsbury is unique too, because not only do we have a full varsity endorsement from the school for boys, but also for girls.
Nice.
And that was a component we added back, I think in 2011 was a girls program, and they've been hugely successful, and I don't want to leave them out, and if I do, I'll get in trouble, but I do want to give them a quick shout out. They've been hugely successful, and they are, our counterpart in the school, and, it's important to have that synergy, to have as many people playing rugby as possible at Simsbury High School.
Absolutely. And Ed, we will do another show in May after you get some games under your belt.
Absolutely.
And we can get some more information on the girls team and give them some opportunity as well our show.
Yep, that'd be important.
Well, that's excellent. So Simsbury Rugby alumni playing in college. It's kind of neat for me because the names we talked about, I coached a bunch of them in baseball. And many of your former players have taken their game to the college pitch.
Absolutely.
See, I'm getting the lingo
down. Look at you. You're getting educated.
The lingo down, baby.
We're going to get you out
Baseball,
there.
basketball guy here.
Right.
And a couple of recent grads have become coaches.
Yeah, I mean, Roger, I'm most proud of
college coaches.
Absolutely.
Luke Sauls and Dylan Faraci
have become college coaches.
Yep. Frank Sauls, Luke's dad, is one of my great friends since elementary school, and he's proud as a peacock about that.
And he should be. Luke was a phenomenal young man, a great rugby player for us. He had All-American status as a high school player for us. And, I was very proud that he's gone on to take over my alma mater, Springfield College Rugby.
That's right.
And Luke
that's where he went.
That's right. Yep.
He went there.
And that's where he went.
Yeah.
And he took over that program, and he's doing an awesome job there in the playoffs last year.
Good.
And him and I just exchanged conversations at a player profile session last week, and we stay in touch, and very proud of him.
Love it. So. I hate to leave out anybody, but some of the real success stories, I'll read through the names and you can focus. It's Andrew Finken at the U.S. Military Academy.
West Point.
Jasper Stone at Cal Polytech.
Very, very.
Newbar, great friend of mine, great family. One of my favorite stories, I'm very close in baseball with the Alekna family. And I coached all three of them, Mike, Dave, and Ricky. And Mike got cut from baseball junior year. I'll never forget the conversation with him. It was really sad because I love him like a son. He goes to rugby, never touched a rugby. Is it a ball?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's called a ball.
Yeah.
And fast forward, he's all league at Bentley University.
Went on to do great things in college and become all league, all conference, and it was a very successful program at Bentley when he was there.
Unbelievable. Another great family friend of mine, the Conleys.
Yep.
And Devin and Chris and Patrick Conley. Pat worked so hard at basketball. He just didn't have the juice to make that 10, 12-man roster. He goes to rugby.
Yeah.
Was it like sophomore, junior year maybe?
He came sophomore year with us and just fell in love with the game.
And he's down in Furman right now, one of the top players in the conference.
He got named all conference along. He's down there with Jackson King down there, and they're doing great things. And that Furman coach calls me all the time looking for more players.
So I just love that. I just love it. That segues to our Trojan.
Well, let me just tell you what I'm most proud of. Right, so as and there's a huge list, Roger, and I have a slide for it. I don't want to minimize it, but there's close to 20 different colleges that we have kids playing in, right? And it's important to me because our kids go to college and they play, right? They're not going to be a practice dummy. They're not going to sit in the sidelines. These guys are playing. So I was lucky enough. My own son plays. Lucky enough to be down at the small college Final Four last year.
Joey at Endicott, baby.
There was 4 kids from Simsbury High School participated in the Final Four small college, playing against each other down there. And awesome. Joey, Matt, and Brad DiGiacomo, and James Carew, 4 kids from Simsbury participating against each other at the national level. Being flown to Houston to participate. And, there's other kids getting flown around the country to play rugby. And Brad DiGiacomo just got named All-American 2 weeks ago.
Wow!
From Simsbury High School.
That's fantastic.
And, Roger, and that's what I'm saying. This game has so much to offer, not just in high school, but in college. And these kids who even could be late bloomers
Right.
They're falling in love with the game.
Yeah, that's what many of them are.
And they're immediately getting success, and yeah, I'm most proud of them.
You played college sports. You know how when you come to college and you've got that team that you already know,
Yep.
it's built-in friends right out of the gate. And I think that really helps the confidence of that freshman student get acclimated to being away from home and being on their own.
And Roger, and the key thing there, and this, I call it a gateway. Rugby is a great gateway to college. Is not only do you walk on and get 35, 40 friends, you walk on and your rugby IQ is higher than a lot of kids on that team because you've played 3, 4, more so in some occasions. And, honestly, you're immediately embraced. You immediately hit their top team or very close to their top team. And, your status becomes really, really elevated as a freshman coming into those programs.
Well, that's awesome. Well, this segues us, Bree. We're going to move to the video that Ed's put together. Ed, you guys go on some tours. You bring as many young men as you can. You have chaperones. Our AD, Jeff Pinney, hardest working AD in the CCC.
Absolutely.
Good friend of mine came with you to Philly.
Yep.
And Ed put this piece together, and he's going to narrate it for us right now. You will enjoy this, folks.
And Roger, the rugby culture is based on tours. A lot of the tours are part of the rugby culture. And that's why it was so important for us to embed it in there and have it be part of what we do at Simsbury High School. So this is one of our, obviously you see humble and hungry.
Humble and hungry, baby.
Humble and hungry, right? That's our phrase. That's our mantra. That's what we talk about, and it symbolizes what our culture is kind of based on. So, right embedded in our logo, that is what we kind of establish as ourselves. We want to really keep that over objective on everything we do. Right? We want to be humble, but we want to be very aggressive in what we do for the sport and passion of rugby.
Love it. All right, let's roll the tape, as they used to say.
All right. That was our 10-year logo. So that was our 15.
I like it.
So as we progress up, I don't know if I'll be here for 20, but who knows?
Yes, you will. You got 3 more left.
See.
Look at that, Matteo, Shanley, Saul's Stone right there.
This was our high school championship season 2017 against Greenwich. And there's a great story in there, and I'll tell you in a minute, that was the team that went on to play in the championship
Ranked 25th in the country?
We were ranked 25th in the country that year.
That's
another
fantastic.
Good rugby family, the Taylors. That is the most famous picture.
Look at JoJo.
And there's a good story, and I'll tell you after this. Nieves, I don't know if you remember Nieves, that's Brad DiGiacomo. And then there's a ton of players that you look at this and you go, wow, it just goes by fast.
Mm-hmm.
Sal Travato, one of our top players a few years ago, is on playing at Iowa right now.
Wow.
This is one of the more recent ones. This is 2021.
What is that, Ed?
That is a line out. When the ball goes out of bounds, that's a line out. This is going to be a scrum. And that is one of my favorite players, Niles, who's going to have a huge season for us. Bitapati, another going to be a fantastic senior for us this year. And there's a lot of things that, this is going pretty quickly. It's tough to talk about it. But
sure.
Those were our last year's captains.
Jack Garrity.
A lot of love on that team.
Yeah.
2 Love brothers, a lot of love.
Yeah.
So,
there's Coach Matteo.
There's Coach Matteo looking frustrated at some point. Sure. That was a Delaware team we played last year. We played against a team from Delaware. That was a few years ago.
That's great.
And I love to showcase the excitement that the kids have together.
Yeah. It's the smiles on their faces, the camaraderie.
It's important to me to have that tightness.
Of course.
And that's, that's the important part of the takeaway from this game. So that's Roberts right there. And they're going to be another top senior for us this year. It's my buddy Gonzo. I love him. He's going to be a super
you love
player.
Him all, Lee.
Mr. King, who's doing great things in college.
Here we go, the Philly road trip.
This is our Philly trip, right?
Cheesesteak City, baby.
We did the Cheesecake Tour. We did the Liberty Bell. We toured the city in a little red bus. We went to the State Hall. And we obviously got to go to Gino's and
there's Coach Madano, Jeff Pinney.
Yep.
I see
Pats
my
and Geno's there, Roger.
Oh yeah,
Got to get
I see
there.
my boy Howie Rosenberg in there. He never shies away from a camera.
He never shied away from a cheesesteak either. And
Here's the Ireland trip.
This was a great tour.
Wow, can you believe you went to Ireland?
I'd wake up middle of the night,
squad?
Roger. That was Galway right there. That was a fantastic. That was our first stop.
Incredible.
We got there. Played the Galway Corinthians. Was our first game out of the gates over there, and fell in love with the country.
How many student athletes did you bring?
We brought 41. 41 and another 8 girls accompanied and played. That's their facilities over there. That was
My
a
buddy
kickoff
Tom
game.
Tansky went to that.
Tommy was there with his daughter.
Yeah.
That's the
Faith.
famous castle. We bust all around Ireland. Team becomes really tight. Cliff Samar.
What great bonding. There's Dennis Horrigan right there.
Dennis
on the
Horrigan.
left, my boy.
Cliff Samar again. That was an unbelievable sight to see. You know, that was some of the
Some of the exchange gear, a lot of that in rugby, exchanging
Always,
pieces.
yeah.
Like you're going to exchange a piece with me, right?
Well,
Rugby
I'm going to
gear?
give you something special.
Yeah.
This is Washington. That was the White House. This was our first night in Washington. That might have been one of the museums we toured.
That was
That is
2017.
in the White House. We got a tour of the White House.
Wow.
And the team got a picture inside there. That's actually in the White House.
Special
So
stuff.
we were looking at, for the president at that time, some more pics just on tour
Washington
there.
Monument, Lincoln Memorial.
Just really, a really special time with the kids. And, and it's culture too, right? You get a chance to see these things. And I don't
There's
want to
your
leave
fan
our
base.
fans out.
Fan base, dedicated parents.
And our booster club, Roger, is phenomenal. And this was our famous bingo night.
Yeah,
A
I
selfish
heard about
plug
that.
for our bingo night coming up April 1st.
And there's a nice snapshot right there. Wow, off your marketing piece.
There it is. Yeah. And that was when we came in second. We lost to Greenwich in the finals, 2017, heartbreaker.
Here's your favorite.
I love seeing all those kids play college rugby.
These are all the student athletes that Ed moved on to the college ranks.
And that's
And he's got a barcode.
You got to have a barcode these days. So,
Humble and hungry, baby.
That's our mantra.
Well, that was nice, Ed. Great job.
And Roger, I do mean our booster club is great. I mean, for what we got to do, and part of the culture of rugby is, you'll go out there and compete, beat each other up, and then afterwards you share a meal with the other team, and you guys sit together, talk, and have that camaraderie as a rugby player.
And that's Rugby Europe. That's what they did in Ireland and England and Scotland. That's part of the deal.
It's across the world.
Yeah.
And I've had great interaction with Australians, Argentinians, New Zealand.
What a neat sport.
Players, and it's just a culture across the world, and anywhere you go in the world, you'll find a rugby player, and it's a really unique sport.
I love that story. If you could, real quick, till we finish up, because we're getting up against the timeline, is that picture you and Joey got when you had credentials and you got to meet the famous player.
Just to kind of give a little snapshot of the culture of rugby, right? So I had an opportunity to work for NBC Sports in one of the most famous American games, New Zealand versus Ireland in Chicago. And being a fan, I went down to see the press conference with New Zealand after the game. And it was the first time New Zealand had lost to Ireland in like 35 years. And their captain was at the booth. He had a big black eye, big guy, really well-spoken. And you learn a lot listening to these guys talk. They are humble. All the credit went to Ireland, very humble people. And I caught him coming out of the press conference in a back hallway of Soldier Field. And it's just me and him, and he probably thought I was a stalker, but just me and him. And I said, I knew his name, and I said, hey, do you mind if I get a picture with you? And this guy doesn't know me for Adam, doesn't owe me anything. He just lost the first time.
You guys had credentials on.
I had credentials, but I'm no one important, And this guy's an international athlete at the highest level, playing for New Zealand, number 1 in the country, number 1 in the world. Yeah. And he said, absolutely, mate. And as luck would have it, I'm having issues with my iPhone. Right, and he can tell I'm stumbling. I got fat little fingers, so they're really making a mess of things. And he can tell I'm antsy. He can tell I'm a little bit, worried he's going to walk off. And in that awesome New Zealand, backdrop, it's okay, mate. We'll get it to work.
Relax.
And just this guy's just lost a big game. He's got a black eye. He's beat up, and he's got time for the small people. And that's not a height joke on me, but he's got his time for the small people. And that's the culture of rugby.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of books on that, how they sweep their own sheds, they call it.
Wow.
And if you look at the World Cup, you look at the locker rooms post-game for Japan, New Zealand, Australia, you could eat off the floor of them. That they think it's their responsibility. There's no one's going to take care of you. When they're done in their locker room, the floor is swept, all the tape balls, everything's cleaned up, everything's put away, the place looks pristine. That's the culture of rugby.
They take pride.
Take pride in what you do, and they're proud of who they are, and they don't want anyone else taking care of them. We'll sweep our own sheds.
Love it.
Great culture, Rob.
Love it. That was a great video, Ed. Last piece, folks, is the 2023 season. When do you start practices?
Roger, we're going to start March 11th. Same time as pitchers and catchers start the high school. We're going to get going right around then. There's a lot to put in. Obviously, as we ramp up a little bit and compete in this hectic schedule we have. This year we're going to do a spring break trip. Every year we try to go somewhere, and this year we're going to go close, go to Boston. We'll play the Xavier brothers on Tuesday. We'll do a little work with the MLR team, the Free Jacks on Wednesday, and then play our buddies in Belmont, the reigning Mass State champions, on Thursday. So a good little 3-day trip for us. We'll do some Boston tour. We're looking to obviously see Faneuil Hall, maybe do a little Fenway Park tour while we're there.
Nice.
And we'll do a duck tour. We'll get some things done.
That's fun. Those are a blast.
It's important we see the culture. Important we have fun. That's
did
a
you
big
say
part
a
of what we do.
13-game schedule, Eddie?
No, we're about a 9 at this point.
9, okay.
And depending on playoff runs, we may escalate from there. And then we get back from the spring break. We go down and play our buddies in Trumbull. Always a tight game. And then Fairfield Prep. And then Richfield is Senior Day, May 6th. It'll be fun. That should be a fun game, very evenly competitive game there. We'll go to Staples, and then we host our buddies from Greenwich. Not a lot of love lost there.
They're your arch rival?
You know what? In years past, it's been a very, we were in our heyday in 2017, 18, 19. We were very competitive with them. We were the first team in 2017 in the state championships to ever have a lead against them.
Wow.
And, we took it right to them. But we've kind of fallen off in the last few years, so we're trying to circle the wagons here.
You'll work it back, E. And this guy's amazing. He's also the head rugby coach at Trinity.
Yes, I am.
And that's a fall sport.
Yeah, I love the game. And clearly it's important for people to foster the game and to keep driving the game. And college rugby is that missing piece. Right? There's been growth in the youth end segment of the game. There's been growth in the high performance end of the game, in MRR, the professional game. The piece that's always been missing in USA Rugby and has been kind of a shortfalling has been the college area. Mm-hmm. So I want to make sure I get back and keep solidifying the game there and helping out. And they're a great bunch of kids at Trinity, and I'm happy to be part of what they have going on there.
That's fantastic. And Ed also is an assistant football coach. He works with Dave Masters. We've done a bunch of shows inside Trojan football right here. And I say on my shows, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, Dave Masters, if your young man, your son plays for Dave Masters, that's a great program he runs. If you are fortunate enough to have a son to play with this guy, Ed Matteo, you won't regret it. Because, Eddie, what you do, bro, I'm so proud of you. Ed and I go back to Little League. We used to beat each other up. And at the end of the games, we'd hug and move on. And that's the true sense of an athlete, in my opinion. So, Eddie, I mean it. What you've done, my friend, is just incredible. And I think there's 2 or 3 of you, because I don't know how you do all the things you do. Your wife must be a sweetheart, because you are all over the place, and you raised 3 wonderful young men, all great athletes in high school and college. And your daughter, Kelly, is the goalie now. Again, Georgie was the goalie. Now Kelly on the varsity hockey team. The Matteo family is Simsbury.
Thank you, Roger. I really and I appreciate and the people who don't know Roger except for this don't know how much he's done for Simsbury. And there's such an admiration for who he is as a person and for his longevity in helping the community. And this is just another extension of what Roger is. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Roger has devoted so much time to Simsbury, so much time to the sports areas of Simsbury. It's incredible how far his tentacles reach and how many young kids he's actually impacted, and that's the sign of a great coach.
Well,
so I have admiration for Roger, and I know this is like a love fest, but there's a lot of mutual respect here, and I think the world of what Roger does, and
we were fortunate to have great kids. You know, I have 2 boys, and they played football, basketball, and they listened to me for all those years. And then when they got in high school, they were so glad that I was in the stands. I still coach the summer teams and the fall teams, but yeah, it's been a great run. I bleed blue and gold. I went to Simsbury. I'm a townie, and I'm proud of it. So any closing thoughts, Coach Matteo, as we wrap?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the time, and we'll come back and sync up as the season gets better.
Count on it.
You know, but you know, if you're a parent out there or you're a player looking to play, give it a shot. You know, and don't just take my opinion for it. You know, go reach out to a current player, a past player, a parent of a player. There's a lot of passion that goes with this game. You're never going to be as close as you are with your fellow rugby players. And it's a game you can play the rest of your life. You're going to play it in high school. You have a great opportunity to play in college. You can play it in men's clubs after college. And you could play up to the age of anywhere you want, 60s and 70s. And you know what? You'll fall in love with the game. And I guarantee you won't regret it. So it's safe. It's fast. And it's a great team sport.
It's rewarding.
It's very rewarding.
And you're part of a fraternity.
Yep.
Worldwide fraternity. A band of brothers.
Yep.
And there's a lot of competitive sports at Simsbury, and this is just another one of the fine competitive sports. Well, great job.
Let me just say one thing, Roger, and all those compliments are great. You know, I'm surrounded by fantastic individuals.
Of course.
You know, Howie Rosenberg has been a phenomenal hip-to-hip person with me, along with John Madano, Dave Duncan. Obviously, these guys are really the pivotal part of what's going on.
And Dennis Horrigan.
Dennis Horrigan was incredibly influential early on and helped us tremendously and did
just
great
a great
things
guy
for the sport.
Simsbury guy.
And then the grandfather of Simsbury Rugby is Dan Spada, who really got this whole thing rolling. And then all the parents and the alumni who come back and help out are just it's a complete
alumni. I love that.
It's a complete team effort.
That's awesome.
And I love every one of them for doing it.
Well, that's great, Ed. This has been great. So, folks, this wraps up our first Scrum Down with Trojan Rugby. I've really enjoyed this, Coach Matteo. It's been so much fun. I feel it was super informative to the Simsbury community and myself with regard to the sport of rugby, how it's grown over the years and will continue to grow. So we heard a lot about the program. We're going to wrap this up for now, but we will be back in May when the season's going. And until that time, Coach, humble and hungry, and as Coach Masters and I do at every end of our Trojan football show, is Trojan Pride. Great job.
Great job.
And I want to be sure to thank the fine folks at Simsbury Community Media for hosting us with this program. Patrick, the station manager, and Bree, his assistant, who make this station buzz, as well as the board of directors for Simsbury Community Media, folks who volunteer their time to support our great station. And before I leave, I just want to say what a great setup this is. This is all brand new. We got a Trojan sports desk. This came from ESPN, from Don Calantonio. Patrick worked on refurbishing this with an outfit in Southington. We've got beautiful new backdrops, new cameras, all new studio, lighting. We got a Conn College graduate in Bree who's lights out. This is about as professional as you can get. So ESPN, you watch out. We're on our trail, baby. So as we always finish up, Coach Matteo, Trojan Pride.
Thanks very much, Roger. I appreciate it.
Love it.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.